Hi everyone, I'm Tom and this is my UK Games Expo post-Expo report, I suppose. I'm just going to talk about, what went on there and the games that I saw. We can see some pictures of things and, later on there will be, give me a little bit of time to get the games played and there will be plenty of playthroughs of great new things. So, the Expo was last weekend. We went for all 3 days, which was a bit of a jump for us. We'd only ever been for a few hours, maybe half a day on a Saturday before. We've been, 2 years before now. So it's been at the NEC. This is the second year. It seems to be growing exponentially. I can't remember numbers and things, but it's getting bigger and bigger every year. I think it overtook Origins was the last thing that I saw. So we had no idea what to expect. We hadn't spoken to anyone. We should probably have asked someone, what's the press preview been like previously? But yeah, we went to as many people as we could, which turns out it's not that many, because I was meeting all these people for the first time. A lot of them I had either spoken to before, done Kickstarter videos maybe, or spoken to them about the list or things. So we kind of chatted about, the channel and the Kickstarter and crazy things that are happening, and then their game. And by the time we had done that a few times, the time was over, I think. So let's talk about the games that I saw at the preview and be accompanied by some pictures of them now. So the first thing we saw was Nimbee by Nick Case, which, if you saw my preview, it was in there as one of the games I was really excited about. It's a game where we are worker bees and we are traveling through the hive. Certain spaces will activate certain conditions. We can swap places with the queen bee and all of these things. It has beautiful beeples, they're called, the wooden bees that we use to travel around. It has a lovely queen bee that was painted for the copy that Nick had. It looks great. That's one of the ones I've picked up and I'm really excited about doing the playthrough for that. Then we moved over to Scrumpy, which is by Paul Harris, and this is a deck builder with a lot of twists on the things that you would expect from a deck builder. So it's a game where we are trying to make cider. We have cards with, that will generate apples and barrels and all of these things, and then they will go into your storehouse when you have made things. And you see on the left-hand side of the picture, there is your storehouse area, and you kind of tuck cards underneath. So if you have a card that says you make an apple, you take a card from the top of your deck face down and put it in your storehouse as an apple. On the top side it will be apples, on the bottom it will be barrels, for example. And you need these ingredients to combine them to be able to make the cider and make points and things. But they are cards from your deck, so they could be starter cards, they could be more powerful cards that you pick up along the way. They are in your storehouse, so it's a really nice mechanism to limit, hoarding things. You need those cards back to be able to carry on with the game, basically, because they are going to be stuck in your storehouse. There are ways you can see what's in there. You can use some cards to be able to take a look and see if your really powerful ones are being stuck, just acting as apples for now. But I thought that was a really good thing about it. There are twists in that you can leave cards out. There are certain cards with a symbol that means you can leave them out next round. You don't have to discard them like you would in a deck builder. So you can play them and then leave them out. But there is a penalty involved. You're going to have to draw fewer cards next time to make up for the card that you left out. You can also leave cards in your hand. So you can basically try and manipulate the perfect hand that will let you make as much stuff as you can next time. Again, there are penalties involved. You're going to get fewer cards if you want that power, but you are going to be able to guarantee, basically, it's not left to the shuffling or luck of the draw. It's in your hands. If you're prepared to have fewer cards, you can decide what those cards are going to be, essentially, which is a really good thing as well. Another unique thing about Scrumpy is the workers that you have. Now, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it in the picture, but on the right-hand side is a big list of all of the actions that you yourself can take. You have these 3 workers, and in the spaces where you would normally put cards to activate things, you can put one of your workers down and take a less powerful version of basically all of the actions that the cards would do anyway. And that is a thing for, Paul said that would be a benefit. If you don't like deck builders at all, then you can play as a worker placement game if you want. You will probably lose, but you can play it like that. It's not a deck builder where you are going to get a ton of cards. There are cards on the top that are specialists that will do some more powerful things. So you will get some powerful cards into your deck, and as they go on, they unlock more powerful ones. So as you take one of those specialist, you're unlocking an even more powerful specialist for everybody else to be able to buy. So a lot of twists. Hopefully we'll see more from Scrumpy on the channel later in the year, But yeah, really looking forward to that. Then though, we went to Alley Cat Games and we saw Dice Hospital for the first time, and I met Cesar for the first time, who I have been speaking to for a while, ever since before I did the Cauldron Master playthrough. And Dice Hospital, oh, Mike Nudd, the co-designer, was there as well. And Dice Hospital, I talked a little bit about it in the anticipated demos video, but it is a game where we will have our choice of these ambulances with patients who are dice. The lower the number on the dice, the more urgent the care that they need, the closer to death they are. So you want the ambulances with the higher numbers because they're going to be easier to treat. But if you take the riskier ambulance, you're going to get first pick of the upgrades that are available. You start out, as you'll see in the picture, with this hospital made up of these hexes that are isometric rooms. So they will all be, there'll be like a morgue or a discharging room or various types of treatment rooms. And this is where you'll be able to manipulate the dice. You can add to those though, like there is, in your hospital there is a room that will treat one dice of each colour and increase it by one each time for when you put a nurse in there. You start off with 3 nurses and every room can take any colour of nurse to just activate its main power. But there are rooms later on where you could say treat 3 yellow dice as long as all of their numbers are identical, or as long as their numbers are sequential in some way. There are a lot of variations on manipulating those dice. So you can get more rooms to put in there, but the downside of that is you're only going to have 3 nurses still to be able to employ in those rooms. Also, though, you can get new staff. You can get specialists, which will be able to do various manipulating things. You'll be able to, for example, whenever you have treated a yellow patient, treat another yellow patient by a step. And, or you could discharge this. If you use this doctor to treat someone, they get discharged when you treat them on a 5, because usually you have to treat somebody that's already a 6, and that will discharge them. We actually played through the game as well. This isn't just the preview. We went to play it. And it was really, really good. We played 5 out of 8 rounds, and we were all a bit aimless at the start because, it's our first try at the game. But it was really, really interesting because it's not just as you would think that the first ambulance is always left for somebody. Sometimes you really need the upgrade that's out there. And it's not just a balance between finding, the right rooms or the right specialists. It's a balance between the two because, as I said, if you only get rooms, you're not going to have enough staff to put in those rooms. If you only get staff, then they're nice, but they're not really going to be able to, go up to their potential because all they're doing is adjusting 1 dice at a time. They've got the power themselves, but being able to put the powerful people in a really useful room is perfect. But you're going to it's going to take time for you to be able to do that. Really, really enjoyed Dice Hospital. Next, we saw Kaleidocards from GGG Games, which is also coming up on Kickstarter later in the year. And this is a deck of cards that's a game system, really. You can play a lot of different games. I think there's 8 that there's already rules for that you can play. So all of the cards have a different coloured background, a different coloured font, and a different colour written in words on the card. And there are a ton of different ways to play it. There is the classic thing that's always in puzzles of, saying the words quickly, but the fact that the word is not necessarily the colour, the colour of the font is not necessarily the word that's written down, so it trips your mind up. There's a deduction game that can be played with it. There are games where, you have to have a certain amount of things in common with the previous card that was played. There are a lot of things that you can do with, just this simple deck of cards. And I imagine, once that you can get it as well, or once that it's in the hands of fans, that even more different things will come up from the system itself because, presumably there's a lot of things that you can do with that. So that is Kaleidocards. We saw Terra as well. I didn't know that the tiles and things were glow in the dark in Terra. Fits the theme. That was in one of my anticipated videos as well. It's a cooperative game where we are stuck in caves and we need to get out basically alive. It looks really interesting. Didn't get a chance to play it because a recurring theme in this video is going to be me telling you that games were just flooded with people. So many booths were just constantly occupied, and that's a great thing. So Terra is another great looking one that I don't know that much about. You can see some pictures here. It's tile laying, it's trying to overcome the obstacles, it's trying to escape the caves alive. I did pick that one up, so that one will be coming up on the channel whenever I can play it, really. Then we met Tristan Hall to take a look at Gloom of Kilforth, which, again, it's in my anticipated videos. Big fantasy card game where, you know, one of the things that jumped out at me first is I hadn't really... I'd seen the art and thought, you know, that looks nice, but when you see it in person and see how many unique pieces of art are on these cards and how beautiful they are and how, you know, they're artistic but really, really lifelike at the same time. It's really, really beautiful. You know, Tristan was really nice. I won't mention that because everybody was really, really nice. You know, just assume that everybody was. But yeah, we met with him, had a chat about things as normal, and Gloom of Kilforth, you know, the journey of getting that here and finally completing it. You know, it's been in development for a long, long time. It's a very, very big sprawling game that's designed to take place in a night, so really looking forward to try that. I did a bit of a David Brent there, didn't I? But yeah, we had a quick look as well at 1066 Tears to Many Mothers, which I will mention is on Kickstarter right now. If you don't know, if you have been interested in Gloom of Kilforth, or, you know, the theme of 1066 in general, it is it's a two-player game where it replicates that battle. You know, he was explaining things in the game that I can't remember now, but things that really took place in the battles. You can take those exact same tactics and you can play it out in the exact same way if you want to, but generally you will be, you know, trying to make your own side win and trying to change tactics. And what if they'd done this instead? There might have been a different result. You know, it's not one for us, again, as peaceniks, as I said, but it's if you are at all interested, then that's on Kickstarter and you should go and check it out. Next we saw Champion of the Wild and its designer Tom Clare, and we had another chat as well. And the game isn't really another one that isn't really for us. It's a party game, a social game, which wouldn't really work with two, but it's a game where you are making these kind of fake Olympic events that all these animals take part in, and you have these cards that represent different animals, and you are trying to convince the other players that your animal would be the best at this particular event. Or he mentioned, you know, stacking, you know, these animals would be best stacking on top of each other and all these, you know, silly things. And another thing that enhances the silliness of the game is the art, because it's beautiful again. It's really, really nice art, but it's quirky. Everything's got a strange twist in it. You know, there's animals in boxing rings. There's a lot of animal. Hopefully you can see in the pictures. There's animals in these really strange, funny situations. So that's another one that's going to be coming to Kickstarter in the near future. So you can look out for that one. We saw a box for Pandemic Legacy Season 2. You know, Esdevium had, you know, huge, because they're sponsors of the show as well. They had huge tables, but also because they've got a lot to show off. A few things that I noticed: there's a new Ticket to Ride, a German one, I think. Number 9, which we did end up playing, and I didn't take any photos of. That's a really nice game where you have it's kind of a, you know, what Rado calls the bingo games, where there's this deck of cards that tells you everybody's going to get a number 1 this time, and all the numbers are different shapes, as you can see, and you are going to have to, you know, tessellate these numbers, and once you have a firm ground floor, you can start putting numbers on top, and the way they score in the end is, you know, you multiply how high up they are by their value, and, you know, the bigger numbers have bigger areas, so it's going to be harder to get them higher up. But it was quite a nice game, and unfortunately, by the time we'd played it and gone back for it, that a couple of shops did have German copies, because it's out in Germany but not here yet. But they'd run out before we could get one, and Rachel especially really enjoyed that. So hopefully we're going to get our hands on that in the future. Dice Forge looks quite cool. It's kind of a... Well, it's not a deck builder at all, but it's got that kind of feel of all these cards are around the outside of the board that will, if you obtain them, they will give you abilities. But generally, to adjust your dice, you'll start off with these dice, and the sides are all little, you know, Scrabble tile looking things that will come off and get replaced with more powerful things. So the aim of the game is to dice build, really, but not, you know, not in the sense of bag building. You are literally constructing the dice to alter your game, and hopefully that's going to be coming out soon, and we'll get to take a look at that. So then we were told that time was up and we needed to leave, and, you know, we tried to escape to the Bring 'em By, but we were told to go back to the press office, so we walked back in there, said hello to everyone who opened the door, and then the tannoy announcement said that the expo was open. So we ran to the Bring 'em By to sell our games off, because that's how I afforded pretty much all of the games. Is you know, a lot of things that have not really been going in trades and things, they went at the expo. They're really, thankfully, because that means that I can get all of these great new games for the channel before, you know, because the Kickstarter is still ongoing. You know, it's fantastic. that the Kickstarter has funded. Now I'll just mention that. Thank you to everybody who contributed or took a look or just watches the channel. But yeah, hopefully that's going to lead to some great new games in the future. But the bring and buy especially was really, really important for getting these games at the Expo. So after that, we came out, and I have just remembered, because I'm looking at the pictures on my laptop now to remind me the order that things come in. We went to the Basically Wooden stand. This company is basaccallywooden.co.uk. The first thing that we noticed was this amazing Dominion rotating board thing where, you know, the whole market is around the edge and it has the gold cards and everything in it, and you could basically have that in the middle of the table and rotate it around. I can't remember how much it was. I imagine expensive, but I imagine playing Dominion with that, it'd be beautiful. But yeah, they also had these Nimbee boxes. I can't remember how much they are, but I mentioned Nimbee earlier on. They have these beautiful wooden boxes that you can keep the game in instead of its cardboard one. They'll be available from their website. But the reason that I'm annoyed that I just remember this, they had inserts for games that would be fantastic if they had them, like the Colonists. It had space. It had a wooden insert that had space for all of the buildings and things. You know, it's probably good that I forgot, because I could get games instead. But I really, really wanted some of those inserts next year, though. Basically Wooden, they make inserts and things. So now I'm not particularly good at remembering orders of things anymore, but I'll just go through more games that we played and just kind of briefly talk about them. We took a look at Beer Empire. We haven't played that yet, but you know, gave us a quick overview of the worker placement system of you put them on certain times and then they will get to do certain actions with the tiles that you've got in your player area, and you're trying to get beer to compete with the critics and compete in the beer festivals. Looks like a really good bigger game, as well as all of the other great looking stuff that came from Board and Dice this year, you know, Super Hot and Pocket Mars. We ran into F. Corona Lane. We went off to the Hilton where you can have some open gaming, and we played through a new demo scenario for Unlock. So it's one of those half-an-hour scenarios that's designed to be a bit smaller, and you know, don't want to spoil anything in case you want to play that case yourself, but we did get ourselves stumped on something that was very, very might have been very obvious to other people, but yeah, we did kind of sit there very confused for quite a while before, you know, realizing and then going, oh no, what have we been doing for the last 10 minutes, staring at each other and, you know, desperately trying to come up with an answer, and it was that answer. Anyway, that was a fun little scenario. We played Between Two Cities Capitals, which was really great as well. It does add a lot to think about. It adds more from the beginning, because there are special tiles that want to be next to some tiles and not next to others. The mats really get in your way sometimes, but do help. It's you know, a double-edged coin really, because double-edged coin. Anyway, yeah, the mats really get in your way, but they've got the bridges that make things adjacent that shouldn't be, so they are hindering and helping at the same time. That was really interesting. The districts were big point scoring opportunities really. You want, say it says shops next to offices, so you want the biggest set of shops and offices that are, as long as they are contiguous, the biggest area that you can make out of those two things. And there are 3 different things that have 3 different scoring areas as well, so different values for first and second place that might make them more or less desirable. And we especially forgot about those at the start, because we're not really used to the expansion, so it's important to keep those in mind so that you can start building those combinations up from the start. We played QE, which is from Cubico Games, which is not one I expected to play. We actually went over for Jam Sumo that I went on about in my my preview videos, and because we ran out of time on Friday, I was supposed to pick my pre-ordered copy up on Friday. Completely my fault, ran out of time, didn't pick it up. Obviously, everyone loves Jam Sumo, and it ran out, so we went back there hoping, crossing our fingers on Saturday, but unfortunately everybody loves Jam Sumo and it had sold out. But we did run into someone that watched the channel and thought, well, why don't we sit down to play QE then? The reason that it wasn't on my anticipated list is because it's a bidding game that needs 3 or more players, so for us as mainly 2, it wasn't of interest to us, but it's a really interesting bidding game. You have a country, you know, it's a generic country, you know, you have an engraved flag. As if you don't know anything about Jam Sumo or Cubico Games, Gavin makes all of these games, you know, they all have wooden components, everything's lovely engraved wood, so you will have a particular flag and that's a country you want to collect. You will have a particular industry, cars or planes or something like that, and you will want to collect those as well for points. You also want to collect a wide variety of symbols for points, but you will be getting these tiles, and yes, I've got a good picture, so you can see the tiles there. They have a flag, an industry, and a points value just on its own. So there will be different stacks for different rounds, and the first player will turn over the top auction stack and will write a bid on the back of their personal bit of wood that's kind of, got a particular finish on it where it can just be dry erase. It's a dry erase marker and it wipes off. Anyway, they will write their bid on there, and that is public. That goes on the open space. Then everybody else in secret writes a bid. You can write higher or lower, or you can write nothing at all if you want to. Then the start player takes all of those bids in, looks at them. If you bid nothing, then you get 2 points. You can only do that once per round. You flip over your thing to say that you've done that, and you can do that fine. But then the person who won the auction gets, the person who bid the most wins the auction, but only that person knows, only the person who wins and the start player knows what they bid. They take the tile that they've just won, and it could be the start player that wins it if they bid the most. They take the tile they just won, write the bid on, and pass it to the winner. So nobody knows what everybody actually bid. They can know that if it wasn't the start player that won, that the bid was higher than whatever is out there. But there is that thing of you trying to collect sets of flags and industries and collect different industries. The points values that are on the tile come into play, but there is this very, not uneasy, but very, very tense, unsure atmosphere because nobody knows what everybody else paid for things. And you can bid anything. You don't have money in the game. You can put any number down you want. But at the end of the game, the person who paid the most is eliminated from the game, gets no points at all because they're the greedy player. They just tried to outbid everybody. The person who bid the least gets extra points as well. And the interesting thing that happened in our game was the score was very close at the end. I was in the lead by quite a way, but myself and the second place player tied for spending the most, tied exactly. We were both just eliminated. If I had spent one less than him, I would have won the game. But so that happened. The top two were eliminated. So it was down to the other players. And the person in last place got 6 points for spending the least. He had the least tiles as well. He got 6 points for spending the least, which put him into first place, so the last player won the game. So if you are interested in bidding games and these kind of, there's not really social deduction to it, but there kind of is of, how much did you pay for these things? Looking around and seeing, well, you really want that for your flag, so I'm going to try and take this from you, but then if I win it, I've spent loads of money to take it, and I might just lose the game because I spent the most. Really, really, not one for us, as I said, because it needs at least 3, but I would recommend that you check that out if you're into bidding games, because it was a really interesting one. A surprise for us that I think I only found out about at the Expo, or maybe just before it. This is from Artipia, and it's called The Master's Trials. Now, if you're familiar with Dice City, where you have a great big player board, and you roll dice, and it's going to activate a certain row and column, a certain card in your city, and it's going to produce resources, or it's going to get you gold, or it's going to attack other players, and things like that. It was a really cool game of, evolving your own city and things. Did not like the attacking in it at all. We just played it at game night, and the other players were not. There was no attacking in that game at all. But it's not how it's meant to be played. So didn't really play it again because of that nature in it. But this takes that whole concept and turns it into a cooperative game where we are fantasy characters that are fighting against some big bad guy. I spoke a little bit about it to Konstantinos from Artipia, who, the head honcho of Artipia, and he told me more about it. So you have a board like in Dice City, where with all of these cards that are kind of built in as you start, but the boards are modular. They will have, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it's like your class, and then a type that you are, and then a weapon that you have. 3 separate boards that all join together. You then, rather than having just a communal thing of what you can build, and it's kind of a brinksmanship thing of, I want to get this before you, you have your own personal deck, and based on those 3 boards that you took, you will take 3 different little decks and shuffle them together to make your own personal upgrade deck. And then that's what you're going to be doing to, you know, overwrite the things that are printed on your board and get better cards, better abilities that will let you fight stronger things, because we are trying to fight monsters before the time goes out. There are location cards, there are special bonus power cards that we can take. It really, really, really seems very interesting. Just for the fact that I like Dice City to begin with, the concept behind it, but turning it into a cooperative game completely removes the problem that we had with it and makes it more exciting for me personally. I love co-op games. And this is going to be out from AEG and Artipia at Essen, so can't wait for that. Anyway, more games. Nice cup of tea. I was so excited about this, and on Sunday morning we had decided, you know, there's all these games that we still haven't gotten to play yet, that we've gotten to play some, but the ones that are really at the top of the list, everybody's always playing. So as soon as the doors opened, we were there on Sunday and just ran to the surprise stare booth. Tony Boydell wasn't quite there yet, but we sat down, and then a lovely couple from the Netherlands came and recognised us and sat down to play it, because they were Snowdonia fans as well and really wanted to see what was new in a nice cup of tea. So Tony came over and told us all about this new game, and I explained a lot of it in the preview video, so you can watch that for kind of a bigger overview, but I can show you things now. So it's got new specific trains for this game itself, where instead of using coal, you know, coal is out of the game. Coal just isn't a part of it anymore. The cube that comes out in the spot where coal was, if you're familiar with Snowdonia, is now chai, which is what you can turn tea into, and you can get at certain points in the game. And that is something that you can use to get your worker. You know, if you've got a train, you can use chai to get your extra worker for the round. You can use chai on every action as well. Underneath every action space is printed a little chai bonus. If you want to spend a chai when it's your turn to activate your worker, then you can get a much more powerful version of that action. And it's all about kind of balancing when you're going to have the chai and when you're going to use it for that action. Because if you can really... If the rate of work is really high for excavating, and then you have the chai bonus, you can really take out these tea estates. These tea estates are where all the rubble is now. None of it's on the tracks anymore in Nice Cup of Tea. And you really want to excavate these things to start getting some tea estates, because there are going to be harvests every now and then. Events will trigger harvests if... the harvest rate or is it the rail building rate? There'll be a picture on the screen telling you which one. If they overflow, basically, if they go past the edge, they will trigger a harvest and kind of reset themselves a little bit. So you'll be getting tea leaves over the course of the game, which can be used in many ways. They can be converted to chai with the surveyor action now. You know, your surveyor doesn't move up anymore. Your surveyor either gets you some more tea leaves or converts as many tea leaves as you want into chai, but you can only have a certain amount of chai. There is a track for that. So you are trying to get ownership of these estates so that you can get more tea at the harvest every now and then. We probably went a bit overboard on the estates, to be honest. That is a new thing in the events as well. You know, the rogue company that does things if we're going too slowly will completely excavate these spaces that usually have a lot of rubble on them. So you either need the bonuses or you need to be in the right mode. I remember I went into the #1 space for excavating and thought, well, that's a really stupid first move to make, because I'm going to take the first rubble off and the person that goes in the second space is going to be able to take that estate. So the tea can also be used for the contract cards as well. A lot of the contract cards will now, as well as wanting you to have your cubes on helping build the stations and the tracks and having rubble and things, now there are bonuses for having tea, not chai. Having tea is really important as well. There is a special station at the very start, which you can give up tea leaves to get cubes in there. There are stations along the way. As I said, there is no rubble on the tracks anymore, but there are these places that need to be filled in with rubble. So if you take the excavation action and you have enough rubble, you can fill in those spaces, and then all the track is available up to a certain point to be able to be built on. And, you know, gives you access to the stations where you will do the normal station things. There is another special station at the very end of the track where if you build in there, you will get points based on the number of chai that you have at the end of the game, multiplied by 3 or 2, depending on which space you manage to get into. Chai is also worth some points at the end as well. Weather's a bit different. You know, the tea harvest is affected by the weather. You know, if it's foggy, it used to be that you just couldn't excavate or build tracks in Snowdonia because it's too dangerous. Now it's kind of like a smog, so we can still do things. It blocks off 1 space each on excavation and track building, but it also damages the tea harvest a little bit as well. So I think that's everything that we saw in Nice Cup of Tea. Absolutely loved it. It's still a ways off. I think Tony mentioned that he's hoping for next year maybe. You know, it's still in development. It's still being tweaked, but I absolutely loved it. And I'm kind of taking words out of Tony's mouth of what he said to us, but it has got that feeling of bigger turns, of more escalation, because once the kind of beginning bit is that we had some bad luck. We started with really terrible weather, and the terrible weather kind of continued, so we kind of were just swirling around the tea estates, just kind of digging those out slowly and trying to take ownership of them. But once we started getting some chai and the weather started turning a bit nicer, we were doing massive things on our turns, because not only can the work rate go up once the weather starts getting nice, you can use chai to boost those things even further. And it really did feel like you were getting huge things done just in, you know, one fell swoop. So really, really cannot wait for more Nice Cup of Tea. Next we play Guardians of Atlantis, which I mentioned is the MOBA board game, and Rachel and I play League of Legends, so we were really interested in seeing how a MOBA translates into a board game, because there is a lot really simulated by the game itself. You know, there are minions going by all of the time, there are all of these crazy abilities and things going on, but we played through we watched some people there that played through a few rounds, and then we played through a few of ourselves before we had to dash off. But it was really interesting. It really does have that MOBA feel to it. The minions are kind of abstracted a bit. There's not as many, and once they're all taken out of a certain team, you're trying to push the other team's to the other team's base. So once you've taken all of their minions out, everybody moves across a bit, and you're trying to get all the way over to their base. The interesting thing with combat is everybody has 1 health. 1 hit will kill anybody, and you have cards that will defend from attacks, so it's not like everybody's constantly dying. But you do have to be very, very careful in the game, because everybody is as weak as everybody else, even people that are really high levels. So it's a really tense atmosphere, and really tactical as well. You know, there was a lot of open discussion going on, because we are all newbies to the game. But the kind of decisions that you are having to make will hold that back, because you know that this person can do this, and so if you go through this big chain of things and hope to, you know, out-chess the other person, then you will be able to get a hit on them, get them killed, and you earn double their level in coins. And that is important as a catch-up mechanism as well, because if you do manage to get that shot in on a really high-level person who's doing really well, you will get so much gold that you will race up the levels. Leveling up was done in a really interesting way as well, because in a MOBA you will be buying items constantly to enhance your character, and you will be leveling up your abilities. In Gods of Atlantis, this happens in the same way, because you will have this upgrade deck for your cards, and you will take 1 to have in your hand that replaces one of your level 1 cards, but also you will tuck 1 underneath your player board that now has an ability, you know, as if you'd bought an item. It will enhance attacks or let you move more and things. It was a really interesting game. You know, I'd kind of had this inkling before we played it, but, you know, as I keep mentioning, we are really, really peaceful players, do not attack each other at all in games, and so obviously a game where that is the point, it's not one for us, unfortunately. You know, when we play League of Legends, we're on the same team. But I think that if you are at all interested in, you know, the game itself or how a MOBA works in tabletop form, this is a really, really interesting one to check out. And there are expansions coming. There's an expansion available that adds more characters and things to it. Really, really interesting game. So next up was the City of Kings. Now, I'd read a lot of descriptions. I'd read the Kickstarter page of City of Kings. Was really interested in the idea. A big sprawling RPG game where we have this grid of tiles that represents the map, And we are going to be doing all of the RPG things you would expect. We have, you know, health stats and attack stats and move stats on our very, very big player boards that actually, it looks daunting to begin with, but you don't use a lot of that information to begin with. You can ignore basically everything but the very top where your stats are and the bottom right-hand side where you're going to put the markers to say which actions you're doing. So we are going to be going out onto these tiles and exploring them. We might find resources. We have a little worker caravan that can be sent out. You know, you have these a certain number of actions on a turn that either you can do or your worker can do. So, for example, on my first turn, I went out to the first tile because you can't move diagonally in the game. You can move orthogonally. So with 2 move, you could go, you know, up and right. Can't go onto another unexplored tile if you're already standing on one. So I moved on, explored it, and found a mine. So then I could use my other actions to move my worker on there and let my worker generate. And he, you know, worked in the mine and got me a stone. You can use those things later on to build structures that will increase your defenses or let you get other things. Monsters in City of Kings. You have these monsters that you will find on certain tiles, and they will get a random, you know, I can't remember the numbers now, but every time that Frank said how many there was of a certain thing in the game, it was, you know, a very big number. I've mentioned before about how important replayability is to the City of Kings. There was something like 100 of these little strips that go underneath the monsters that will tell you their, you know, their health, movement, range, and all those, you know, standard stats. There is an immense number of those. On top of that, you will draw a certain number of these little tiles from different difficulty bags. There are a ton of those as well, and they will give them their abilities. You know, will this one have poison, or will this one set fires out? He told us of one really, really high level monster that would, you know, put fire into each adjacent space that would really keep you away from it, so you would want to do range, but then it had an ability that would pull you in as well, pull you into all the fire. And then what if it got combined with this tile that would put poison in all of the diagonals, so really you're going to be completely messed up, and also would push you out as well into the poison. You know, these, you know, you'd have to be really unlucky for all of that to come out in one go. But the monsters are all going to be very, very different based on what comes out of the bag each time you play. Just another thing that adds to all of the variability. So I'll show you some other pictures as well of items that you can get, and there is a really interesting way of leveling up. You know, each tier you can unlock these different things. Every character has different abilities, but they can do everything basically. You can build every character in a certain way if you want them to be the healer or the tank or the attacker and things. You know, everyone has the potential to do that. It's up to you how they evolve in that way. I'll just say that in general, City of Kings looks like an amazing, well, it's too early to say amazing, isn't it? Really, really interesting and unusual as well. He mentioned that you could just, you know, play the game by moving your worker around rather than your adventurer, which seems really interesting to have that kind of duality of the standard role-playing, move around the board, discover things, fight monsters. That's great, but having this you know, dimension in worker movement and you know, generating, managing resources and workers and things, that's a really unusual thing to add in there. But I can't wait to see how that works in the finished game. It's a ways off. The Kickstarter campaign didn't end that long ago, but that, I imagine, is going to be one that is a must try when that finally comes out. So that's the City of Kings. I got a tweet from Kai Herberts, who is, you know, a self-publishing designer. He has a game called Das Katastrophenspiel. I know I'm butchering that pronouncement, but you know, the catastrophe game. It's a card game. It's a cooperative card game where, you know, you're trying to solve all of these various catastrophes. You have a team of agents and a card of resources in your starting hand, and you'll be trying to cooperatively use the symbols to take out the emergencies that are happening and build your decks up later as well. It's a completely you know, self-published, self-made game. You know, it's got pictures and things rather than graphics in it, so it's a very rough and ready design. But if you're interested in taking a look, it's harder to get because of this self-made nature and its limited number and everything. It's harder to get hold of. It's best to try and catch him at conventions like this. But if you would like to know more about it, his website is hespiele.de. So hespiele.de. You can check out more of the game there. And he spoke to me about another game that's coming out that will have graphic design and all of those things, and that's going to be a game set in space. So I look forward to hearing more from him about that. Then we finally made it. We finally saw a gap in the CGE booth and got through a very rushed explanation of Pulsar, not through the fault of the lovely guy that was explaining it to us, but because we said, like, you know, we're desperately running out of time and we need to go and see more things. Can you please give us the rundown of it? And we ended up playing more than we intended to, because it was really fun. It's a game where, you know, we're trying to mine pulsars. That's the main object of the game. So you have this big circular universe map, and you will draft dice first. You know, you will roll all of these dice, and then you find the median dice. So in our games, it was usually 4 was the median dice. It was a 2-player game, so you know, it was the third dice in. It was always a 4 every time we played. I think we played 3 rounds of it. So if you want to take a 5 or a 6, for example, say you want to take a 5, there are 2 tracks. There's a turn order track and an engineering track. If you want to take the 5, that's 1 more than the median. You have to move back on one of these tracks. So do you want to get worse in turn order, or do you want to be further back and get less engineering cubes? That can be really useful things, especially at the end of the game. So there's that decision for a start. What numbers are you going to draft? So you each draft the numbers, and you're either going to move, if you take stuff that's above the median, you're going to move back on the tracks. If you take stuff that's below the median, you're going to move forward on the tracks. So that's, you know, an interesting part to the drafting just in itself. Then everybody does both of their dice in their turn, and it moves around in the turn order. And you can use the dice to, you know, move around on the map itself. If you land on those big oval spaces, if you just move past them, you can reveal them and put one of your cubes on the undiscovered planets and get no bonus. If you stop and end your movement on one, you know, you have to move the whole thing of your dice, so that involves some thought when you're taking the dice. But if you land on one of the spaces, you get to put yourself on an inhabited planet, and you will get bonuses like reroll tokens or points or these structures that you can put down. You have a personal player board where there are technologies, a little mini tech tree that you can start to work on that will get you bonuses every time you move through a certain thing on your turn, or will get you more rerolls and things. And you can see the kind of pipes in between each thing on the upgrade track. You know, you would need to get from the bottom row, you would need to get the left 2 to get the next one up from it. So there's a bit of a tree thing going on there. There is a main tech tree that it doesn't look like I got a picture of. There is a big thing that is random at every game. It's made up of loads of different things. And there is one, in a 2-player game, each person can only be on the thing once. You know, as soon as I've taken a technology, everybody else can't have that now. And they will affect your powers in the game. There are these little structures that you will buy that will end up on pulsars that will generate you points every round. So it's a kind of, you know, cumulative game. As it goes on, you will put more of these things out on the board, and you will be generating more and more each turn. There are these mega structures that come out that will get you things when you place the right dice to get them. But also on either end of them, they've got kind of half a dice. So there is a bit of a set collection thing of, if I've got half a 4, then I want to look out for a mega structure with the other half of a 4. And then as soon as I complete both of them, I've made a 4 and I can do a free action with a 4. It's a kind of vague overview of it, because it's still in development, as well as we didn't get to spend as much time with it as I would like to. But it looks fantastic. It's from Vladimir Suki. I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong when I say Suchi, but we'll see if that's any better. And CGE, that's going to be coming out at Essen, hopefully, and I can't wait for that. It really, really was, as I said, we had a brief go of it, but it was really, really good, and I'm really, really excited about playing the final version in October, hopefully. Didn't get a chance to play Codenames Duet, or That's a Question, but you know, that's just time, unfortunately. But you know, they will be coming out soon as well. Codenames Duet, I think, is really, really soon, so we should be able to get that, you know, through normal channels. Finally, we went over to Formal Ferret, who also, you know, brilliantly was swarmed the entire expo of people wanting to play the networks and Wordsy. And I went over and bought a copy of Wordsy because, although I said in my preview that I don't know anyone that likes word games, I still want to try it. And then I asked Gil about the Networks expansion, and you know that's still being worked on. It's still being developed. And then he started showing me the cards that he's got. He's got, you know, printed cards just with text on them at the moment. So it's very rough and ready still. Where if you've seen the networks, you know these aren't final cards. They are very they are typed prototypes. So just be aware of that. Anyway. So, new things in the network's executives. I have mentioned a few of these things in the preview video, but you can kind of see some pictures of them as they go along now. So, there are new... you will get an executive at the start of the game that will give you an advantage and a disadvantage. So, you can be the Beeb. You know that every executive is a Mr. and Mrs. You can just decide the side that you want to play as, but they don't affect the power. It's just that you've got that option. So say you are Mrs. Beeb, and when you perform drop and budget, you get extra money. Even if you took points, you know, you can decide whether you want money or points at the end of each round. And so no matter what you choose, you get 5 million extra. That's your advantage. Your disadvantage, though, is that rather than being able to pick any action that you want like everybody else can, you have got a rondelle. And so you can only do the next 2 actions in your rondelle for free. You're going to have to pay money if you want to do more actions. So if you want to do the same action twice in a row, it's going to cost you loads. So everything is really nicely done in that the benefit that you've got is completely mitigated by the disadvantage that you've got. But it's also really thematic, you know, because you are given all of this money, you know, like the BBC, because you're given all of this money by the government, there are certain rules and restrictions that they have to abide by. Mr. and Mrs. Butcher, if you are them, then your reruns are always worth more, and when you develop a show, you can pay to ignore all of the prerequisites on it, which is fantastic. But on the downside, all of your shows score less points than they should in future seasons. So as the Butcher, you are encouraged to just get new shows, get them on the air, and get them into reruns as quickly as possible, because they are going to be worth less and less as they stay out. You know, the procrastinator can pay money to be able to turn a show into any genre they want, which is a huge power, but they can't have a show in season 1. So they're going to be scoring nothing in season 1 and kind of being held back a little bit from, you know, everyone else will have their increased season 2 viewers in season 2, but, you know, the procrastinator, for being able to manipulate those genres, has to wait a little bit to start doing it. And then there was Telethon, which I didn't really get a good picture of here, but Telethon is a really interesting executive because you get to ask everybody for money at the start. You know, it's like a PBS telethon, you know, where everybody phones in to donate money to keep the channel going. So at the start of the game, at the start of the rounds, the telethon executive can ask everybody to donate money to them. So they're going to start off with more money, you would hope, but everybody that donated money gets these sponsorship tokens that then can be cashed in for benefits later on in the game. So really, I was excited before about just the concept of having these variable executives, but seeing them in action, not only do they seem really fun for the powers that they give you, but everyone is really thematic as well and ties into some real world TV thing. So really excited about that in it as well. And you know, we saw a few of the new starting shows. You know, there will be that draft that I mentioned, and some will give you more viewers to begin the game with, but others will have less viewers like the starting shows have in the base game, but they will give you money. So everybody's starting things are not just going to be affected by the executive that you get. They're going to be affected by the draft that you get as well. And as I mentioned in the preview as well, the bonus for having 5 shows of a genre is gone, where you would trade money for points. Now there are power cards that are available at, you know, everybody can see what they are at the start of the game, and when you reach 5 shows of that genre, then you are going to be able to take one of those power cards and have a really big point scoring opportunity. So yeah, I was excited for it before, and you know, even more excited now. You know, that's still in development, and it will be a Kickstarter later on. But cannot wait. You know, played for all of these things that I was excited about before. You know, there's not one that I played and thought, oh, that's not as good as I was hoping it would be. Everything that I've played at the Expo has just, you know, amped up my excitement, which is fantastic. And a lot of the games that I picked up, I didn't actually have any time to play, so they will be coming up. I will do another video, or maybe just a post in the guild or something, of what I actually ended up with. because I'm not going to be able to play them for a little while anyway. So I will put up a vote. You know, I know the Kickstarter's not finished yet, so I'll just put up a kind of test vote for everybody to be able to vote on the games that I picked up and see what you want to see first, you know, like I did with the Essen games. So that's not tied into the Kickstarter anyway. It's just kind of, you know, a little test and a nice way of seeing what you guys want to see first. So that was my very, very, very long report on what's happened at the UK Games Expo. So thanks for that, everybody. I'll see you for videos about the games that I got at the UK Games Expo. But for now, I think I am going to stop talking. So see you later, everyone. Bye.